All right, it is 5:30. I'd like to call to order our regular meeting. And please, if you are able, stand and join us in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next, I would look for a motion to approve our agenda. Yes, Jim?
I'll move approval of the agenda with the addition of the human capital addendum that was located at our work location.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Jim and seconded by Namal. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say yes.
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 Yes. Any opposed, same sign. All right, thank you. Motion carries. Next, we will move on to our recognition of the audience. At this time, the board will hear comments from the public. We ask that each speaker who has signed up to address the board state their name and home school district for the record. Speakers must refrain from using this forum to criticize or complain about a specific employee or student by name. Vulgar or profane language will not be tolerated. The board is interested in your comments and will listen carefully, but is not obligated to respond to or debate issues in this forum. This evening, one speaker has signed up to address the board. This speaker will be allotted a maximum of 3 minutes. Upon conclusion of the allotted time, a chime will sound and the speaker is asked to conclude. If necessary, a final chime will sound 15 seconds later, signifying the end of the speaker's time at the podium. I will now call our speaker to the podium, Devin Stachinsky.
Devin Stachinsky, HMR. There's a lot, so I'll get right to it. I would like to talk about Memo 82 first. I knew this day was coming. So let's talk about it like a performance evaluation. I mean, you're basically asking for a pay raise. So like any other job, let's run down the metrics. You went over budget 5 of the last 6 years according to your recent audit report. You let buildings and equipment fall so badly into disrepair that you're asking for over $600 million to remedy the situation. Since 2016, math proficiency has fallen from 46% to 28% across the district. Reading, thankfully, has only fallen from 55.6% to 44.1%. You're constantly bleeding teachers and other student-facing staff and yet have the most bloated administration in the state. And you keep taking steps to make it so you don't have to respond to the public after your meetings or even when parents reach out to you. So I would say, no, you haven't earned it. I'd rather see a cut, honestly. I mean, your raise is worth at least one teacher annually. Moving on from that, I'd like to get into your ELs quick. So EL 15, you marked 9 compliant for 0.6, where the superintendent may not fail to ensure that the policy is enforced in accordance with state and federal law, where the policy states, all policies are enforced in accordance with state and federal law. When legal questions arise, we seek advice from local and state legal counsel. This does not dictate federal supremacy as is being claimed for some of the policy. It instructs you to ask state legal counsel, so you claim you aren't technically breaking the law, but by that metric, you are technically breaking this EL. And real quick, we'll get into GP 3, 9, and 10. For GP 3, number 5, ensure that the results are the focus of the organizational performance. Which results? I've given you your own data showing you the kids can't read or do math. 44% reading and 28% math. Under, which one? Well, I knew I wasn't going to make it anyway.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to our report section and start with the FEA report, please.
Thank you, President Birkeland and members of the board. I have the privilege of announcing our Educators of the Month from time to time, and although we call it Educator of the Month, maybe under my leadership it should be called Educator of the Season. So here we are, and we'll take 3 of them at a time. First up is Amber DeMart, who is a teacher at Lewis and Clark Elementary School. And for each of these nominees who have received the FEA Educator of the Month, I'd like to just read a short part of what their nominator said about them. So about Amber DeMart from Lewis and Clark, their nominator said that she has become Catalyst certified, which has been a positive change for our students. Her calmness and nonverbal communication reverberates around the school. And they go on to say, this is a little silly, but I don't think it's that silly. She says, but all of these situations help. When it's our turn to have lounge duty, Amber decorates the lounge in a sophisticated manner to let all the teachers know that they are cared for with tablecloths, lights, fake candles, and such. So going above and beyond certainly there. Secondly, we get to celebrate Allison Alt at Lincoln Elementary. And her nominator said that Allison is always supportive of classroom teachers and works diligently to provide supports for her EL students. When she is working directly with students, she makes sure they know that they belong and are cared for. Her patience and consistency allows students that sometimes struggle with regulation to feel safe, calm, and ready to work. And our last Educator of the Month is from McKinley Elementary, Carrie Mickelson. And her nominator said this, she has found supplemental materials so that she can differentiate based on students' specific needs, instead of just offering the base curriculum with some modifications. Mrs. Mickelson goes above and beyond for all of her students to ensure that she is meeting their needs. And so that's always a fun part of this job, and I hope that you would join me in celebrating those staff members. I also would like to address memo number 82. This memo reflects that the Planning Committee reached consensus to recommend board member compensation be increased by 50% to become $1,500 per month, with the board president earning an additional $50 per month. The Planning Committee is chaired by Jim Johnson and includes Greg Clark, Melissa Birkeland, Seth Holden, and Tracy Newman. And the Planning Committee reviewed some data that include comparatives of other local and regional school boards. Currently, school board members in Fargo earn $1,000 per month, which would be a total of $12,000 per year. Comparatively, Bismarck Public Schools board members earn $9,000 per year. Grand Forks Public Schools board members earn $6,000 per year if they're the president, half of what Fargo Public School board members are currently earning, or $5,000 per year if they are not the president. Moorhead Public School board members earn $11,760 per year. And I'd love to see the math behind how they got to that number, but you have to love the precision there. In West Fargo Public Schools, similar precision, $12,030 per year if they're the president, or $11,230 per year for all other board members. The rationale that's presented in memo number 82 is that board member compensation has not kept pace with inflation, as measured by the CPI inflation calculator since 2009. To keep pace, board compensation would require a 45% increase, according to the Planning Committee memo. I and my fellow educators can recognize and appreciate the need to be competitive with inflation. In fact, throughout negotiations and even now in the off term, teachers will comment about the extent to which salary increases are not keeping up with inflation. Since 2009, teachers' salaries in Fargo Public Schools have not kept up with inflation. For example, the starting salary in 2009 was $34,339, and today is $47,393. That's a 38% increase, which does fall short of the 45% increase mentioned in the board memo. What should teachers believe about the board if it deems itself worthy of a 50% raise when the teachers have not experienced raises that keep up with inflation over the same period of time? Additionally, some of the paraeducators in our district would earn just a little bit more than the new pay rate for school board members. For example, a para on step 1 in group 1, working 35 hours a week, 36 weeks of the year, would earn about $20,000 or $21,000, which is just a bit more than the $18,000 that board members would make under the proposal. What should paraeducators believe about the board if it deems itself worthy of a salary of a full-time employee who is working directly with students? And finally, the memo states that the board president will be compensated an additional $50 per month for the additional duties as president. Additional duties. I'd like to remind the board of recent history that we have together, teachers and the board, around the concept of additional duties. On February 8th, 2022, the board received a copy of the Recess Commission report, which was a collaborative effort between the board and teachers. That commission, as identified in the report, reached a very clear consensus that additional payment should be given to elementary teachers who supervise recess because it is an extra duty. At the negotiations table, this board, including 80% of the people who serve on the planning committee, who also serve on the board's negotiations committee, 4 out of 5 planning committee members, steadfastly opposed that and insisted that recess was now just an expected duty, not additional. So if the board is going to pay one of its own members additional compensation for additional duties, then should the FEA understand this to be a change in the board's philosophy, which struck down the concerns of elementary teachers? What should elementary teachers believe about the board if it deems itself worthy of additional payment for additional duties when teachers advocating for that very concept were told it's not appropriate? So I ask you to consider what the perspective of staff might be as you deliberate and ultimately vote on memo number 82. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kraft. And we'll move on to our administration report. Dr. Gandhi?
Thank you. Just 2 things. One, just an FYI for board members that the next board meeting in February will be significantly lighter. There's going to be 4 of us cabinet members that are at a conference. Dr. Gross, myself, Dr. McKenna, and Missy will all be gone. So just an FYI on that. Secondly, just an FYI for the board, I did ask governance earlier this week that we change our process for when we do our annual strategic plan and operational plan renewal to the second meeting in February when we'll all be here. And the purpose for that is really because as we go into budget planning for the 24-25 school year, I think it's a good opportunity as we are obviously approaching the end of ESSER funding that's been provided to us for the last couple of years to take a look at where are our strategic priorities as an organization. And we can't do that without the board first telling us what their biggest priorities are in terms of through that reaffirmation of the strategic plan and the operational plan. So the goal is for that to come before you at the second meeting in February, have that approved, and then we can strategically allocate the resources that we want for the 24-25 school year based on what the board's biggest priorities are.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Gandhi? All right, thanks. And next, I would look for a motion to approve our consent agenda, please. Yep, Robin?
I move approval of the consent agenda with the human capital actions addendum.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Robin and seconded by Seth. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. Motion carries. And next, we will move on to our first order up for business, which comes to us through memo number 84. Dr. Gandhi, would you like to introduce this memo for us?
Actually, Dr. Gross stopped me in the hallway and he enthusiastically wanted to introduce
Oh,
it.
well,
so
take it
good to
away,
have him.
Dr. Gross.
Well, thank you very much. So I would like to draw your attention to memo 84. And really what this talks about is one of our policies, and that policy is 4220, which is educational opportunities through sponsoring entities. This policy was created in response to legislation that happened, I believe, 2 sessions ago. It was called the Learn Everywhere Bill. in which, as you can see from the memo, defines a process for educational opportunities outside of the classroom from many different organizations or areas. And one of them would be community programs, and that the law then allows us as a system to grant credit to our students at the high school level if they successfully complete a program such as the one we're going to be talking about tonight. Our policy talks about that any entity who wishes to apply to a district goes through and meets with the district leadership. And in this case, it was myself, Dr. Leanne Hansen, and Mr. Tristan Love. We then looked at a program called Umoja, which Frederick Edwards and Janelle Gibson have facilitated in our district for the past multiple years at our secondary buildings, and really looked to see the connection between what happens in that program and the content standards at the state level. Through those conversations and through the work of the application, which is connected to this memo, you'll see that we can find a direct connection with a course or class that we teach in the Fargo Public Schools, which is creative writing. I'm not going to talk about too much about the program because Frederick and Janelle are here to give you an overview of that program. But my thought is just to share with you that we've gone through the process. We've ensured that the provisions that are part of that bill and our own policy would be met, including finding a highly qualified instructor who would be willing to be that go-between between the program and the school system. So we do have a highly qualified instructor in the area of English language arts who is highly qualified in the area of creative writing. So through all of that process, I think we have met the provisions, and you can see that we are making that recommendation that you would accept and approve this opportunity for our students. And with that, I'm going to pause and just know that I would answer any questions maybe after the presentation. I thought that Frederick and Janelle could now share a little bit about the program and our conversations together. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to them and they can make their own introductions.
There we go. There we go. Starting this out real strong. My name is Frederick Edwards Jr. And
My name is Janelle Gibson.
today we'll be talking to you about Umoja. We call the specific creative writing the academy because the students will be learning. Our vision is very simple. We want to create a vibrant community through creative writing that propels a safe space for students to not only explore themselves, but explore the communities in which they are a part of. The biggest thing is that they are interconnected with the world around them, not just the local area, but people all around the world and the world abroad. Our vision and our mission goes into intrinsic and extrinsic awareness, which means they learn about themselves for the first part of the session, and then they learn about the community and the people around them. And we believe that these motivations not only build trust and rapport, but they allow students to self-reflect and have that creative expression.
Bear with me. This is the extremely nerdy part, but we'll get through it. We'll get through it really fast. We essentially came up with this program, like how many things began with an idea. And really, to the gentleman who spoke first, that's sort of the challenge that we were looking at addressing is how do we get not just performance measures up, but we're far removed from being a student. So how do we get kids interested in actually raising their performance measures? Is it as simple as come in the classroom and sort of do what I say as a teacher, or do we allow students to sort of shape that environment of what does a raising a performance measure look like? So, holy, does this extend? Can I do that? I'm just gonna do that. My back was hurting. Sorry. Let me not joke. But so me and Fred, we met for about a month, 2 months to develop this concept map. So we thought about some ideas of what do students actually need in the classroom to actually learn. So we came up with four core concepts, which is unity. First, we have to unify around an idea, right? If we're gonna raise math scores, well, is everybody all in on this, or is it just you? Is it just you? Is it just you? If that's the case, we're not gonna accomplish this goal. Unify, motivate, culturally transcend, and leaders. We need leaders in the classroom to also push this message across. So how we formulated the idea was we thought about, well, I don't have all the ideas, right, of what a leader is, but we started to have some conversation. So we put it in an ideas box. Well, ideas of leaders are empathetic, communicators, accepting, peacemakers, collaborators. The part where we intertwine education and history, I would say mostly is after we pass that phase, we think, well, what are some studies and people we can actually research that showcase what unity looks like? This is the model that we're working on. So we thought about the Cesar Chavez's of the world, the Barack Obamas. I'm missing some on that list. I think we even went to like Nelson Mandela, the Steph Currys, right? How do these people unify around this topic? Are there any things that we can pull from the research methods? There is a whole lot. After that, we moved on to our actual unifying box. So what happens at, oh, let me not skip the nerdiest part, the most fun part. Before we do that, we reach a point of singularity, and I can't wait to nerd out about that. We'll get into that a little bit. That's where we take that information that we researched, studied, and we bring it to one singular point, right? That's where all our mass of his intellect, my intellect, everything we put together reaches a point where we have to break through a different point in the classroom. The middle box is our actual classroom concept, our actual workshop. So we run workshops based on unity, leadership, motivation. But in order for students to actually get an idea of what's going on, we have to have a period of reflection. All right, that's where the assignments come in. So we reflect on what we learned on in the classroom. And in order for us to transcend and move even further past that and actually raise your scores, we have to agree on this. Is this what motivation looks like for this subject? If we don't agree, how can we possibly move forward with education if there's disagreement? It's hard for us to grow after that. So this is sort of the wheels churning in the classroom. Beyond that, we give students the opportunity to take that education and test it with the hypothesis. So this is where the assignments come in place. If we do an assignment on Nelson Mandela and the historical relevance of what he did as far as unity, are there some things that Nelson Mandela did that we can possibly test? Probably, most likely. So we have students develop a hypothesis, they'll test it in the community or in the classroom, and then they actually walk away with their own Umoja theory on what unity looks like and how did it relate to you raising test scores in math, reading. Is it something that we can possibly utilize and I guess turn this wheel again? I'll briefly get past this nerdy stuff. All right, so Umoja singularity. If you study anything in physics, right, they'll talk about singularity. Possibly a theory, maybe. We talk about it in the classroom, right? But essentially, singularity is a point where there's so much density that it captures all light, mass, frequency, sound, and energy. And all those things we focus on in the classroom. We focus on the light of the individual, right? What they're actually emitting. What are they putting out? What is their energy when they come in the classroom? We focus on the sheer body, the sheer number of students in the classroom. We focus on the frequency. What are they saying? All right, what are their traumatic past histories? What are they letting out in the classroom that we actually cannot overlook today? So we might have course matter, but if somebody says, hey, I didn't eat today, I can't focus on math, those are real things we have to take into consideration in the classroom. And the overall energy of the classroom. What is the mood? All right, what are students facing today? Do people feel like they're just not in the spot to learn? So light, the experiences that illuminate where there was unseen, unheard, misunderstandings. A lot of youth we saw aren't learning in the classroom because there's misunderstandings between teacher and student, and they're just not getting past that. They can't learn I'm not even gonna say the wrong thing. They can't learn this particular method because I don't agree with you. You said something last week and it really troubled me, so we're not good. So we work on getting those things out. The mass, the sheer number of people and the weight of each individual's experience, the ideas, the cultures, the food, the tangible experience, these are all learning opportunities that we can find out through creative writing. Frequency, the waves we send, what we think, what manifests in the words, what is heard, what is felt. Have you ever felt what someone was going through? Have you ever felt someone's frequency? I think we all have. So these are things that we actually teach on in the classroom. How do you be empathetic here in this space? And the energy, our ability to move and shift the reality around us. Can we change the course of our own lives with the right energy? Can we change the course of our test scores with the right energy, with the right focus, with the right mindset towards actually accomplishing that goal? What force drives you? What things motivate you to place yourself for the betterment of yourself, humanity, nature, etc.? That's where it gets nerdy. So we'll move past that. All right. The singularity that we're looking for is a center point of infinite density. This is an actual science definition at which no mass can escape. So in Umoja, we look for singularity in life in the classroom. The life of one person is not more significant than anyone else. Our collective light, mass, frequency, and energy will transcend the current state of reality. For us, the current state of reality is the current state of Fargo Public School District. And just the fact that the scores that this gentleman just named, if you're actually in the classroom and you're teaching in the classroom and you listen to kids, something has to break through. Something has to. So, collective conscious, existence and experience beyond the normal physical level. That's what we're after in this class period. We're looking for what has been done before, what's not working. What's not working we can't continue to do. Kids' test scores cannot continue to be that low in math and reading. We all have children, we all have a family, and that is a huge issue for us. So I'll let Fred keep going and show you exactly what the classroom looks like.
Thank y'all. So I always tell people, or I always joke and say, these are a whole bunch of words unless you see what we do in action. I'm just giving you an example of a handful of kids that we have. I think we got about 200 and some kids in our program. This is just literally a handful from each different school. Angel is not only the president, but it's a state champion in debate. Jaden is the co-president of Fargo Youth Initiative, who helps out with events. Clarence not only won a film scholarship through Umoja, he was actually able to run in a Juneteenth event and get $10,000. No 6-year-old that I know is getting $10,000. Manu is always putting on the newspaper, and Lang, one of the funniest students that I know, is has started a podcast and now has a great following through one of our workshops. Antoinette is a comic creator, and we've been talking with different stores about getting her comics shown inside the stores. And Abakar has played, it says 19 traveling games, but the dude lives and breathes basketball, and that's through connections that I believe that he made through Umoja. And these ones that are anonymous for several reasons, but helping kids get off of probation. Those struggling with mental health have now a connection with a counselor who we have said, not only should you connect with this person, but we've seen an impact in the past. And the biggest one is that it is a safe space for students who transfer. What happens when you go from Davies to Fargo South because the borders have changed? Right? You don't have any of those friends that you had for the last 16 years of your life. You have Umoja, you have these different connections that you made at that previous school. And so that's one of the things that we love to highlight. Some examples of student voice. We've brought kids to the TEDx Fargo, and they were able to share with Greg. Actually, Greg came to our class today, actually able to share with the executive director of the creators of the TEDx Fargo what they would do if they had the opportunity to do a TED Talk. We've had students perform and win the Fargo Got Talent performances. Each year, we have over 20 students perform at the Umoja MLK celebration that is in collaboration with the city of Fargo. From Juneteenth awards to Orange Shirt Day to cultural performances to film festivals, you name it, our kids are at the forefront, and they are getting the opportunity to not only perform but get validated in these different performances and different things that they wrote inside the classroom, which I wouldn't say is rare. I think that happens a lot, but it doesn't always happen for a lot of kids. We've had some diverse guest speakers come in, and we've had culturally relevant field trips, whether that was to different places around town or knowing about different people. My favorite is that we had Be More Colorful, which is like nationwide now. They came in and they taught VR to our kids, and now our kids have the option to know about VR and to go to school for something different than what we might be teaching. Right in this very room, we had the White House Department come in, of Education come in and talk to our kids about the impact that they want to see. Thank you. We've had kids who were Umoja students at North Dakota State University, at MSUM, at Concordia, come and talk to our kids about applying for college in those local areas, something that I think will be a struggle once Minnesota does this free college for everybody. So one of our biggest things is how do we retain students, but also give them the opportunity to teach back once they have finalized the class. Another one is in our 16-week program, in our workshop, attendance and grades are utmost importance. And so there's a certain grade requirement and there's a certain attendance requirement. So when kids look at me in the face and they say, I can't skip class anymore, that is one of my favorite things because they care about the program and being committed to other people. And so what? So over the last 3 years, Umoja has witnessed transformative journey, unmotivated youth evolving into school leaders, and students transitioning into scholars. While recognizing the existing gaps, seeking accreditation serves as a seed planting opportunity for North Dakota students. Accreditation paves the way for addressing past shortcomings by providing access to resources, scholarships, mental health support, and above all else, fostering a sense of belonging and expressive creation with a dedicated space for the youth. So if you go from a workshop to a pathway, you will know that the evolution means that you go from a one-time occasional workshop to a sequence of learning tracks that guide students to a series of connected workshops, courses, and experiences. And lastly, if you go from extracurricular to accreditation, it shifts to extracurricular activities and involves a formal recognition and validation of the skills and knowledge and achievements gained through the Umoja program. This recognition might involve partnering with educational institutions or relevant accrediting bodies to assist and certify the learning outcomes of students within the program, but it ensures that skills acquired in these activities are acknowledged and hold weight in academic and professional contexts. That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Yes, Jim?
Well, first of all, thank you for that presentation, but to get things going, I'd like to move that we accept and approve the educational opportunities through the sponsoring entities for students who successfully complete the Umoja program to earn high school credit in creative writing.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Jim and seconded by Nimal. Discussion and questions. Yes, Robin?
I've had the distinct pleasure of working with this group of wonderful people, and I enthusiastically will support this motion. I have rarely come across anybody that is as enthusiastic and positive about working with our youth, and I've worked with them across many aspects of our community. So I trust them, and I trust what they're proposing, and I will be voting in favor.
Thank you so much, Robin. Yes, Dr. Grundy?
Yeah, I just want to echo Robin's sentiments, but just also give just a little bit of perspective. Umoja started first as a pilot, one very small campus, and then kind of just expanded to all of our high schools now to the point where we are looking at even an elementary model for some of our students. The first year Umoja was implemented in one of our schools, I had the distinct opportunity to go to their end of year celebration, and I remember very vividly a student, as we work on where we are as a district and making sure that all of our students have a sense of belonging, just saying that this program was the reason that they had their voice. And it was the only opportunity that they ever felt a sense of comfort in our district. And as proud as I am of our district, I also know that we are not providing the educational justice that some of our students deserve, not because of our educators, but just because of the product of the system. And we have to focus on what can we do differently for the students that are not getting the justice that they deserve. Since that day, I think Fred and Janelle know, I have kind of told them multiple times that this can't be an external program. If there's something that's working for students, we need to implement it within our district, and it has to be an approach that we take. So I had actually tried, and I spent better part of 2 years trying to recruit them to be teachers of ours, and failed at doing that. But the next best model was to say, okay, can we replicate what you're doing and make sure that our students are getting credit for it? Because students learn in a wide variety of ways, and sometimes we are stuck to our own notions of how students learn, and there are students that we need to provide a wide variety of learning opportunities for, and this has been a successful model for doing that. So hopefully it can be a replication for many instructors across our system to benefit those students. So I've seen some of that success firsthand, and I know our teaching and learning team has been working really hard on ensuring the alignment for what our students are known and able to be able to do and what the Umoja program accomplishes. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Yes, Noel?
Well, first and foremost, I just want to say thank you for coming to present this organization or program. And I know Fred for a while now. I think it's been a while. Been a while. Yeah, and I see him around our community. He's doing pretty well. So the fact that you get to be here today and to present this, you and Janelle, I don't know him, so I apologize. And just watching him and what he's doing to our youth in our community is very uplifting. And the fact that you get to bring this program to us today for all of us to understand, to me is nothing else that profound than bringing a program that is motivating, that has been experiences like research-based, just making sure that some of our students do have an understanding about their classroom or just teaching in generals, or just how to be able to do their assignments, and just both of you just bringing that connection to to our students, I think itself, it will increase that test score that you were talking about, because I think that I've been in this board for a while, not even that long. I think that I've been talking to you guys about test score. Why is our test score so low? And it's not only you. I think we practically aware, and the fact that we get to have this program ends and to help out, that's a bonus. So I appreciate you guys just being here. I just thought to put my little input in there. Might not be exactly what you're looking for, but I think I'll vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Namal. Yes, Nikki.
Thank you so much for bringing this presentation. Are you guys able to go back to that slide that's got all your students listed on it? That one. I want to say thank you for bringing an option forward that our kids can connect with in a different way, because I love the idea that there's something they're going to get excited about and get committed to. I think I love your phrase. One of the best ones is that, "Oh, I can't skip school anymore." I can see where that you just inside go, yes. And I am very proud of these kids on this slide, but what jumped out the most at me is the last 4 lines. You're anonymous students. If we can help some of these kiddos get turned around and get on the right path in a way that connects with them, that just means the absolute world to me. So I will be supporting this. Thank you for the work you are doing.
Thank you. Yes, Greg.
One thing for people who may not be super familiar with Umoja, and I'm not extremely familiar, but familiar enough to say this, the presentation compared to the actual recommendation, I think there's a little bit of potential dissonance in like this. It's specifically credit for creative writing when the program seems like so much more than that, right? But to me, it makes a whole lot of sense. Last week at the Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration Day, the students from Fargo who were performing there, more creative writing than I have ever experienced. So like it just makes a lot of sense, even though the program does a lot. Creative writing does seem to be one of the most strong components.
Thanks, Greg. Any other comments? All right, I just want to echo everyone's gratitude. Thank you so much for what you've been doing for our students, and I'm definitely supporting this because my hope is that it will just expand and enrich more students' lives. So thank you. Without any further comments or questions, Bill, would you please call the roll?
Holden,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Gullickson,
Yes.
Berkland.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you. Next, we will move on to item number B, the City of Fargo Renaissance Zone Development Plan. And Jim, would you mind introducing this for us, please?
I sure will. Thank you. Planning Committee had a presentation from the city at our last planning meeting. The statutes regarding the Renaissance Zone legislation were changed in the last legislative session. And because of that change and a continuing requirement that subdivisions every 5 years reauthorize, for lack of knowing the right term, the Renaissance Zone program for their community, they are at that point at the city level, so they have come to us for that. The basic change that occurred in the legislation was to allow, instead of just a 5-year framework for the tax incentives, it can be up to an 8-year time period at this point in time. And they also increased the number of what they call islands from 1 to 2. That would be like a freestanding block that doesn't have to be contiguous with the rest of the Renaissance Zone. So those were the two big legislative changes. Planning looked at it, and of course, when this has come to the board in the past, because it comes every 5 years since this originally passed in 1999, we have always been supportive because in the long run, the improvements that the Renaissance Zone has brought has increased the property tax base dramatically in downtown Fargo. So with that, I'm going to make a motion that we approve the attached letter of support for the updated City of Fargo Renaissance Zone Development Plan.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Jim, seconded by Seth. Any discussion or questions? Okay, with that, I will just announce that I am calling a conflict and recusing myself from voting for this. But with that, would you please call the roll?
Johnson,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Day,
Yes.
Gullickson,
Yes.
Holden.
Yes.
All right, thank you, everyone. Motion passes. And next, we'll move on to our final order of business, which comes to us through memo number 82. And since it's through planning, Jim, would you mind introducing this as well?
Thank you. Planning was directed by governance to examine board compensation. This is something that comes before the board every year. And so we asked our team of superstars in the business service department to actually do a little research for us. And as I think Grant Kraft shared earlier, he shared some of the numbers that local boards are getting paid, not all of them, selective use perhaps. Long story short, this is a very difficult topic for board members because we are the only people that can adjust our pay. There is no other entity to do it. We have not done it since 2009, which is quite correct. And Grant was spot on. The beginning teacher salary, if we took the same inflation calculator, would be higher than $47,000. But keep in mind, all of the teachers that have been here since 2009 had a 14 steps that they increased as well. So their total pay has increased much more dramatically than a 50% change. That all being said, this is just a difficult topic because you have to vote for a raise for yourself. We talked about this at planning. We kicked around whether or not we should put forward a motion to change it in 2026 because none of us necessarily would be serving on the board at that point in time. And while that's maybe more palatable, certainly for those of you that are not up for re-election this June, it, quite frankly, in my mind, is not appropriate or fair for those people that are going to serve the next 2 years either. I truly believe we should have been changing this along the way, and we shouldn't have to wait 14 years at a time, or in this case, 15, to do it. So with that, I'm going to put forward a recommendation from planning that effective July 1st of 2024, board compensation be increased to $1,500 per month and board president compensation be increased to $1,550 per month.
Second.
All right, moved by Jim and seconded by Greg. And yes, Jim.
I thought about this a lot, and I'm just going to go on record because I know 5 of you, or at least have a situation where you're going to have to vote thinking that you're voting to give yourself a pay increase. So if anybody wants to put forward an amendment, which is going to put Bill on the hot seat, to change the effective date to July 1 of 2026, I would be happy to second it.
Greg.
I have quite a few thoughts about this motion, and I think while what Jim said is valid and is if that's what his thoughts are, that's great. But personally, I actually this the memo didn't really describe or capture the reasons why I plan to vote in favor of the motion. To me, this topic comes down to access to holding public office. Technically, legally speaking, the only eligibility requirement to be on the school board is that you're eligible to vote in the school district. If you're eligible to vote, you can run for school board. Practically speaking, I don't think that's very true. And there's research out there that demonstrates that the pay structure for elected officials impacts who participates in public office. And all of us here know, but maybe not everybody listening to this knows, but we have to attend quite a lot of meetings, and the hours that we spend preparing for meetings are flexible, but the meetings themselves aren't. Just as an example, so far in January, I've had to attend weekday meetings that have started anywhere between 7:30, noon, 4:15, 5:30, and 6 p.m. And those are, somewhere between half hour to a couple hours. Sometimes we spend half days doing workshops, or we're gone for multiple days at the legally required school board association training for new members and all that stuff. I want to be clear that I'm not complaining about the work, but I am trying to communicate the reality that serving on this board is not particularly compatible with having a normal job. Again, referring to some academic research and our own experiences, more or less to participate in public elected office, often you have to be either self-employed, independently wealthy, retired, and or have a job with very flexible hours and an understanding boss. And I'm not trying to disparage or just perfectly describe anyone at this board. I personally fall into the category of a modicum of flexibility and a nice boss, but not everyone's that lucky. I pulled some Bureau of Labor Statistics data, and 57% of workers out there, only 57% have a flexible schedule that allows them any amount of variance in their hours. And half of that 57% report that they can only vary their hours occasionally. And all of this is to say, time and money are barriers to serve in public office. And I don't think anyone should be discouraged from serving this community because doing so would create a financial burden. I think about our community here in Fargo and who our elected officials are supposed to represent and what our school board would look like if it truly reflected the full range of diversity of our patrons. At the end, increasing school board compensation is one of the few things within our power, within my power, to lower these barriers. Thanks.
Thank you, Greg. Robin?
I listened to the planning meeting recording, and thank you for the robust conversation. Can you share, and Greg had some really good points he just reiterated, can you share what some other locally elected bodies make within the city of Fargo? Do you have those at your fingertips?
Yes, Jim.
Yeah, I sure can. Cass County Commission, which meets 22 times per year, first and third Mondays. Now, they probably have committee meetings and other things just like we do. Their chairman makes $27,700 per year. The regular commissioners make $26,700 a year, $1,000 less. They are also eligible to be in the county's health insurance, and they participate in the state retirement system of PERS. They also get $100 a day for meetings and activities that take up to more than an hour that are on non-commission days. So I don't know how much that adds up to. Fargo City Commission, the deputy mayor makes $31,368,000. All the other commissioners make $28,567. They meet 26 times a year, every 2 weeks. And I think that's the only other Fargo ones. Moorhead, the Moorhead City Council gets paid $10,836. They meet 22 times. They also get paid an additional $150 per month if they serve on the Public Service Commission. And then I think there's per diems they get as well for travel. The West Fargo City Commission makes $10,200 per year, and they meet 22 times per year. So that's the information I have on the other city government locally.
Thank you. Yes, Seth.
I just want to have a couple of comments. When discussing this, I think that was one of my wills to increase this compensation is to open the field for more people to be able to financially actually do this job, and to kind of reflect a little bit on what Greg had said. It all depends too, really, on where we're assigned and what the job, like, literally. I don't have to do the math because I'm self-employed and I do my own accounting. I paid to be on this board this year, literally. And I'm not complaining about it at all because I love the work. I love the work that we do, and I love this position, and I would do it for what we get paid now. It wouldn't bother me. But I think that if we have an opportunity to make this service more palatable for more people in the community, I think that we should do it. I completely can identify with the concerns that that the FEA has. But for me, this isn't necessarily about paying us more to do the job. It's more that we can increase the pool of possible candidates and people that are willing to do this. And I guess given that, I also have been vocal about us not voting to give ourselves raises, but to give the board a raise. I do understand Jim's point that, yeah, there may be a couple of years of people that aren't getting what it is, but I've thought that maybe the 500 increase might be a little much, but I think I'd be a little more comfortable with it if we were to move that date, as was previously a possibility of suggestion. And so, and I don't know if I'm 100% on board with a differentiated pay for the president, because like I said, it depends on what your assignment is. You know, you could have a board chair that, or a committee chair that is more burdened at one point in time than the president is for that year. And so I want us to all be able to, you know, take their turns being president and things like that. And so I'm not sold on the differentiated for the president. I would like to move an amendment to have the motion read effective July 1st, 2026, and remove the $50 extra compensation for the president. I hope you got that, Bill. I don't want to make your job difficult.
All right, we have a motion to amend. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion on the motion or first we vote on amending the motion, correct? Okay. Okay, we'll discuss that now. Yes.
Just as I see bill drafting, can I just clarify for team effort here? Would the motion be effective July 1, 2026, board compensation be increased to $1,500 per month, period?
Period. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Nikki.
I have some concerns that people have brought forth to me. I'd be remiss not to mention them. I am not certain that July 2026 is going to be helpful because what's been brought forth to me is the optics of the whole thing. And we're talking about building conditions. We're talking about potentially building new schools. We're facing a mill levy vote timing. So I'm not sure that postponing it 2 years is really of a consideration. But I did want to bring up those other topics, and if I need to back off of that for the original motion, I am happy to do so, but it does tie into the amendment.
All right, thank you, Nikki. Yep, Greg.
In regards to the amendment, I think it is in direct opposition to my thoughts of why an increase should be done at all. I think delay, if we have good, valid reason to do something, then it should be done at the start of the next cycle. And changing it to be delayed by 2.5 years is purely for optics, and which to me is not doing it for the right reason. So I will be not supporting the amendment.
Okay. Any other comments? I will just share, I absolutely, I'm very conflicted because I wholeheartedly believe and agree with what Greg has said. At the same time, I'm very concerned about, I can't step aside from what it looks like to give us a raise at this point. So I'm very conflicted. And but I understand that this is a really unique job, and you have to have kind of a very, like you said, a very flexible / understanding boss, or not have to work. And that leaves a very small sliver of our community that I think would do wonderful service on the board. I do want to say that I'm not supportive, regardless of what happens, of differentiating the pay for the president. And I know that there's a lot of extra time. I've experienced that extra time, but I don't want to get into like a tracking our hours. Like I know Robin is incredibly busy during legislative session. Negotiations committee is also busy. We would each take on different roles, and I think I don't know that I would be able to support a differentiated pay. Yes.
I'm just the facilitator of this conversation. May I request that, based on what was just shared, if there were two things that were proposed in amendment, the date and the differentiated pay, my recommendation would be, regardless of what the board decides to do, take a vote on this amendment, and then if you want to make a change, then propose another amendment to the original motion. Don't try to amend the amendment, please.
Okay, thank you. All right, do we have any other comments, questions on the motion to amend, or the amended motion?
Can you read the
Yes, how about we
motion?
we'll read what we're voting on. Or, so sorry, Namal, I didn't see her.
No, it's okay.
this board conversations, I've been looking at it, and just like Greg and you, Melissa, there's a lot of things that go into my mind, you know, and it's not easy. It's hard decisions because I'm terrible at giving myself a raise. I will never do that, and I rather let somebody else do my race for me because it's just who I am, as a person, and just looking at this, it's a tough one. There are wonderful people in our communities, and they have a full-time positions. The reason why I'm saying that they have full-time position, it's because they want to take care of their family. So they will not have time to be able to run for Fargo Board of Education and sit on this seat because of the way that the board is being compensated, And other things, when you look at it, for me personally, being the first Black woman ever been sitting here, and sitting here on a couple of board meetings before I even got into the trying to have a whole understanding what it is Fargo Board of Education is doing or what are we voting on, I end up with criticals, voting on issues that are really been effective, and stressful, and it hasn't been easy, and the same time, you're trying to trying to make sure that your mental health it is at state where you can make the right decision, for our kids and for our teachers and so forth. So it's not easy. So I'm just saying this, and I agree with what Greg said. Like I mentioned, it's a lot of time consuming. Just putting the work that you have or the job that you're doing, because I work for myself, is not easy. And I understand that for myself, sometimes it's hard, it's not easy. But at the same time, I knew, I go back, why did I ran from the beginning? What was the purpose of it? What is my reasoning? Why? And then I go back and said, okay, there's a reason why I ran from the beginning, and that is to serve this Fargo community and be proud of serving them and be able to go to school, get to meet with teachers, get to talk to the student and trying to understand exactly what's going on. I'm going to make mine short. So I agree with everything that you said, but it's a tough decision for me. So I'm not going to say I support it or I'm supporting it because it's tough. And then also to just looking into the teachers and our buildings, it's not easy, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jamal. If there's no other comments, would you mind, or could you please read? Okay, and then we'll call the roll. Thank you.
The amended motion is effective July 1 of 2026, board compensation be increased to $1,500 per month.
Okay, yes.
And can I, so we're voting on
On the amendment.
to amend the motion.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Nelson,
Yes.
Christensen,
No.
Clark,
No.
Day,
No.
Gullickson,
No.
Holden,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Berkland,
No.
5-3.
5-3. Okay, 5-3 no's. Okay, so we are
To the main motion.
back to the main motion.
I'd like to,
Yes, great.
I'd like to move to amend to strike the differentiated pay for the president, so that I guess the motion would strike everything after the word month, the first instance of the word month.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Greg and seconded by Robin. Discussion.
I'll just read the motion as it would be effective July 1, 2024. Board compensation will be increased to $1,500 per month, period.
Okay, further, Nikki, did you want to dig in further, or do you have core comments?
If we're going to
Discussion?
if we're going to continue to visit about it, yes. If
Okay.
we're voting, no.
Well, we're just voting
On the amendment.
on
Yeah.
the amendment, right? Yeah.
Could we read it one more time, please?
Just striking the board president comp.
Effective July 1st, 2026, board compensation be increased to $1,500 per month.
No, 2024.
And it's just the amendment to remove.
Yeah.
All right, any discussion before we vote on this amendment? Okay, please call the roll.
Christensen,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Day,
Yes.
Gullickson,
Yes.
Holden,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Berkland.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you. All right. Now back to discussion on what just passed. So 2024, no differentiated pay. Yep, Katie.
I had a couple of questions for the planning committee. I'm curious why the amount, the 50% raise? And then also, historically, has there ever been conversation about building in a small, like every year is a 3% increase so that it's small, but it does at least continue to grow?
Or you can.
I think she was asking a planning committee
Oh,
question.
I did say planning committee, but you can defer to Melissa if you
The
like.
1,500 was just rounding up to the 1454.23 that would have been the inflation factor through November of 2023. And this doesn't take effect until July of 2024. So effectively, it's really just the inflation factor. That's where the 1,500 came from. Has there ever been discussion? There's been lots of discussion over the years of finding ways to take us off the hook and automatically have our salaries change. Things like tying it to what we do in the negotiated agreement, which I would adamantly oppose always. Tying it to the CPI. A lot of different things have been talked about, none of which have ever occurred. And answer your question.
Thank you.
Yep. Robin?
And I'll expand upon that. When we talk about connecting it to the CPI, we also need to consider if CPI is 3%, it might be negative 2%. And so that gets sticky as well. It would have been a lot easier because, like you said, Numal, it's not easy to vote on our own compensation. There's never a good time. It's always uncomfortable. Every elected official that I'm aware of is in this position, so it's not easy, but there's some more background.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, I know you guys were actually there, but I went back and watched the 2016 meeting where you initially proposed and then rescinded, and a lot of the comments that this is kind of a perennial struggle, and I think it was Jim that mentioned something about the transparency of having to talk about it in public is probably healthier than having an automatic raise that no one would ever be able to see, even though it would be easier for us. I think at the end of the day that doesn't feel right to me either. I did have one question, if anyone knew like what percentage of the budget this was. Greg?
I don't have the exact number, and I'll tell you why. I had the same question, and I tried 3 different calculators, and they all expressed it in scientific notation with like, you know how when really small numbers like go to such a decimal point, it gives you like the letter E. All my calculators did that. So
Okay, it looks like it's 0.0003.
yeah, it's in the 10,000ths of 1%. Yeah.
Not much.
Okay. Yes, Dr. Gandhi?
With no input on this board decision, just as we talk about budgets in general, going back to kind of my statements earlier as well, we are as an organization looking at this year restarting kind of from a near zero or zero-based budgeting, meaning that we want to first just identify where is it that we want to make our organizational values that we want to assign as a resource. So like I would avoid at this point, because we're starting the budget for next year, any conversations in terms of this inhibiting another budgetary item, because the approach and the framework that we want the board to take moving forward and everyone else that's going to be a budget manager for us is what is going to give us the results or the value or represent the values that we want as an organization versus saying that this is going to be a competing priority with something else. Because I think this is the year that we want to revamp our budgeting process and kind of reset the baseline of what is it that we want to do as an organization and where do we want to put our investments and then go that way. So I would just say that at this point we are this like don't try to think of it from a priority competing against another priority. Yes, it will be, but we can't tell you that the budget is already going to be designed for next year or this is going to be the impact of it. It really is. We want to put everything on the table this year and then say, what is it that we want to invest in as an organization based on the outcomes that we want to put out. So I would hope that this conversation stays on the merit of it. Obviously, the cost of this would be a cost that's coming from something else. I just can't tell you what that something else is yet at this point in time.
Thank you, Dr. Gandhi. Any other comments? Nikki? Well, it's been amended, but yeah,
Okay.
it's the real discussion.
I'm just going to share a few more thoughts because I'm horribly uncomfortable with this idea, with the timing, with the optics. Moving the date, well, we've kind of gone past that, so I guess I'm going to let that go. But for those of you who have offered that the amount might be enough to help other people run, I don't know. I don't know, but I'm not feeling that it's enough really to move that needle. I don't see people leaving full-time employment to come and be on the board. I don't see people leaving their families more because of that. It's just not that large of an amount, but I have a very hard time right now because I am on the negotiations committee, and we received an email that addressed that the little bit that this could impact our budget could potentially cover another employee. We know that the money's coming from somewhere, we don't know what. I really want to caution us because the public is seeing, yep, they're giving themselves a raise, yep, they're looking for new buildings, yep, they're going to ask for the mill levy, and all they see, the perception is ching, ching, ching. And I guess I'm just really, really uncomfortable with this. But those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Nikki. Any other comments? Yes, Greg.
Anecdotally, I'll say that I have also received quite a few different comments from members of the community, though surprisingly, and I do say it is a surprise because I think the discomfort we're all feeling comes from the fact that this is something I would say is the low hanging fruit of criticism for this position, right? Oh, they're voting to give themselves a raise. But no, surprisingly, the majority of the comments I've got have been encouraging me to increase the compensation for the board. And that's I've heard that from multiple teachers, actually. specifically from Fargo, for what it's worth.
All right, well, without any other comments or discussion, would you please, do you want to read it just to refresh our recollection and then?
I want to try and get it right once.
Yes, please, thank you.
Effective July 1st, 2024, board compensation be increased to $1,500 per month. Christensen,
No.
Clark,
Yes.
Day,
No.
Gullickson,
No.
Holden,
No.
Johnson,
Yes.
Nelson,
No.
Berglund.
No, motion fails. Okay, we will move on to board reports. And could we start with you, Namal?
I'm gonna have fun with this. Mine is simple. On January 12th, 2023, I attended CEA committee meetings. And then on January 16, I believe, it was Chamber Aches and Issues where Dr. Gandhi get to speak. He did well. I should give him a pause on it. And then also too, I just attended NDSBA Brunch and Learn. So thank you.
Thanks, Namal. Seth?
Since our last meeting, had a planning committee meeting and a governance committee meeting yesterday, and I also attended the Chamber's Eggs and Issues event, and it was great. Dr. Gandhi did do a really good job, so thanks.
Thanks. Robin?
Likewise, I attended Eggs and Issues. Governance committee meeting was yesterday. And just a heads up, on February 6th, our next GAC meeting, I will be hopefully en route to a conference. And so Katie, our vice chair, will be leading that most likely. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Jim?
I attended planning, which we heard a lot about on the agenda tonight, and I've been at governance.
Thanks, Nikki.
I left home without my phone, therefore I left without my calendar. But I do know, I was at the Chamber Eggs and Issues as well. I attended the Lunch and Learn through NDSBA, and I believe we had a CEA meeting, if I'm not off track. I think we did. Yes. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Greg.
On the 10th, I was at the Long Range Facility Planning Community Meeting at South. The 11th, I was at the one at North. On January 12th, I had planning and CEA committee meetings. On the 15th, I went to the Umoja event for Martin Luther King Jr. Day and saw a bunch of our students perform. And on the 16th, I attended a health insurance committee meeting. And that committee is going to be doing quite a bit of work over the next couple months as we seek to either renew or get a new contract for our health insurance starting, I believe, in 25 and beyond.
All right, Katie.
I have had no meetings to attend since our last meeting, and I was out of town for a while, so apparently I missed some very cool events. I did realize those people were sharing their liaison assignments for board members that maybe don't know this. I am on the leave bank request, and that's actually all done through email. So I will not have any of those meetings to ever share with you. So that's me.
Email sometime if you feel like doing that. All right, thank you. Oh,
If I may jump back in, I forgot one thing that I would really like to shine a light on. And I had a mind-blowing visit with our virtual academy staff. And I know we're not at the point in the year where we look at this, we talk about this in the spring or the summer, but I would like to see at some point a liaison appointed to them. I cannot say.
I'm the liaison to them.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Well, sorry, I didn't realize that.
They
Okay.
are awesome. So I will say that. Yeah.
Okay,
Confirmed.
so Greg's the liaison. And anyhow, just cannot say enough good about that. When you think about virtual learning, you think about a kid in front of a computer, and that's kind of the end of it. This was completely different from anything I expected. This is a community. They get together and do social things. The kids have the ability to letter in some of these programs. I can't say enough good about it because it's really truly like in building without the building. I don't even know a better way to put it. But the teachers are accessible, engaging. The program is really amazing. So I would encourage anybody that has questions, thoughts, concerns, ideas to reach out and have a visit with them. It is really fabulous, and where they are headed is simply amazing. And so I want to thank Dr. Gandhi and our virtual academy staff for putting together something that offers our kids that need that alternative setting for whatever reason it is. It's really pretty amazing. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing that.
I forgot one thing.
Oh, yes, please,
Oh,
Nimel.
I too attended the long-range facility meetings at North High.
Oh, okay, thank you. Great. All right. On January 10th, Dr. Gandhi, Anne Marie, and I met with the Forum editorial board and had a really nice conversation with them. They asked fabulous questions, and it was really neat to get a chance to talk to them. And then I attended the long-range community planning meeting at South that evening. On January 11th, I was interviewed by Scott Hallstrom on the flag, and it was mostly related to our long-range facility planning. On January 12th, Seth and I met with the FEA and talked about potential ways to engage in negotiation-related topics on off years. And we'll be talking about that probably more in depth when we have our next committee meeting, which is Thursday. And then on the 12th, I also attended planning. On the 16th, Longfellow is one of my liaison assignments, and I went to their PTA meeting. They have a very, very well-run PTA. It was really fun to be a part of it, and it was a great group. And then yesterday, we had governance, and that is about all I have. Our next regular meeting is on February 13th. It is 6:52 p.m., and we are adjourned.